Clark and I are going to be working together a little bit on this Baker acting thing. We got a new bill that's already written. I've been working with Representative Jimmy T. Smith up here. He's up in the Citrus County area. The bill's been written. Unfortunately, in the last session that just started, we were 1 day late of getting everything passed to get into that session. So it's going into the next session. And what in the bill, what it is the people that get Baker acted with dementia, we're giving it an alternative. Right now, I've done a lot of first responder training. I'm talking to Tampa Police Department, Hillsborough County. They said, we don't have any options. That's why we're Baker acting all these people on it. But here's the thing with the Baker acting. There was a woman that got pulled over with a silver alert. This is what started this whole uproar with the representative and all this. State trooper found her driving down the highway. He pulls her over. He knew that this woman had Alzheimer's. She had a silver alert on it, and automatically just Baker acted her. She wasn't doing anything to hurt herself or anything. He just didn't want to sit there on the side of the road and wait till the situation was solved. So the Baker acting became a babysitting tool. And that's what's happening. So in the new law that we're trying to pass, basically we're going to have a 48-hour respite where we're going to have nursing care facilities that have a dementia unit and a 24-hour RN that'll be acceptable for this. The patient, the police department, or the first responders will bring them there first. If they can't control them in the 48 hours, then they'll get Baker acted. But at least we're opening up an option for them.
So Gary, my big question, and we've talked about this, is how do you get cooperation for those to have them go into those units for those 48 hours? Why would a facility want to sign up for any kind of program like that? Why would they want to take in a potentially Baker act person and put them in their facility?
They're going to get paid for it. That's why. That's the biggest thing. They're going to fill up their empty beds a little bit on this. We are going to get a kickback from the behavioral health hospitals, without a doubt. It's already started on it, because now we're taking away their bread and butter on this on it. But most of these facilities here in Florida, they all get empty spaces right now. There's very few of them that are 100% full. So for that 48 hours, last year the state of Florida spent $77.4 million on Baker acting. The Baker Act is a court order. If you have no insurance or not even in Medicare, the state's covering up the bill. And a Baker acting starts around $15,000 per Baker Act and goes up from there. So to follow the money on this, that's one thing that's helping pushing this. The state's actually going to save money by doing this on everything on it. So, but the main thing is, if we don't send them and get them Baker acted, what's happening to people that get Baker acted? Next thing you know, they got a schizophrenic or bipolar diagnosis added onto them, and they can't even go back to the assisted living that they came out of. And half of the time, it's only a UTI. They're in assisted living and their behavior gets a little bit out of whack. The assisted living area or the nursing care facility doesn't want to deal with their behavior, so they Baker acted. All that person needed was IV antibiotics, or just put on antibiotics and the UTI was starting on dealing with it. And it's just out of control on it. So once you get the psych diagnosis added onto you, your whole life changed for that person after that. So when we put this team together, working with Representative Jimmy T. Smith, we had the Department of Elder Affairs in there. The Department of Elder Affairs telling me, he goes, well, the reason why they're adding the psych diagnosis because they get better compensated from Medicare than they do on dementia. I'm like, well, shame on them. They don't even see the after effects that they just created for this person.
So Gary, is there going to be a part of that bill that will have the state providing those funds to pay for the assisted living, the 48-hour stay?
If the Medicare doesn't cover it, if insurance isn't covering it, yeah, we're going to have. But compared to the 15 grand of the, now I'm not saying that we're not going to try to stop Baker acting altogether for people with dementia. Because we just had a woman here with FTD. She was chasing her husband around with a knife, and she was going to kill that man in her house. But she didn't think that was her husband. She thought it was a stranger in the house. A situation like that, yes, they need to be Baker acted. If they're literally going to do harm to themselves or others, that's what Baker acting for. But it's not for somebody that just has a UTI that their behavior's out of whack. I mean, this is just, totally different situation. Now, when we're training, I'm training first responders, the paramedics, they're telling me, goes, we can tell if there's a UTI right off the bat. They're telling me that they can tell the UTI just from the scent in the house because they can smell the urine. And the person that's in the home, they've been used to the same aromas over and over, so they don't notice it as much. So I'm like, if you could tell there's a UTI, how are these people still getting Baker acted? Because, well, that's out of our hands. So there's a lot of complications to this. But we are working on it. We got a lot of good coming up there at the end of this year on it. Now, whether we can get the bill passed, but this is a big start. This is a good start on this.
So other than Representative Smith, who else is involved? A lot of interest? Is there support? Is there growing support for this?
Yeah, there's a lot of growing support. The Alzheimer's Association's been involved. I mean, there's been many groups involved in this, on it. Like I said, the Department of Elder Affairs cares a little bit on it. So we're going to start jumping back on this and on the fall, where we're really going to get strong on this fall, and we'll go through this all again and we put the team back together on it. Right now, they're still in session and everything's going on. So our representative's only allowed to do 6 bills a year, and Jimmy Smith had one open spot. He goes, Gary, this is the time for this, and he contacted me, and we put this thing together on it. I wanted to call it the 2,000-mile bill because that's how many miles I was driving back and forth to Tallahassee to work on this thing.
Yeah.
Other than the 48-hour hold for the Baker Act bill, what else is going in there? Anything else?
Well, the main thing we're talking about is we want to do the training, and all the behavioral health hospitals have to be trained on this, because what's really happening, that's people that worry me the most are the people with the Lewy bodies and the FTD on it, mostly the Lewy bodies, because the first thing the behavioral health is doing is giving them the Holodoll, they're giving all the anescopic, which could almost kill the people with Lewy bodies. Their hallucinations are going to go through the roof. And then they go, oh, yeah, well, this guy's definitely bipolar or schizophrenic doing it. Now, for a 60-year-old man to be schizophrenic is very extremely rare. That's something that happens in their 20s. But they're still adding that diagnosis to them. So they need to learn about the Lewy bodies. And you would think they would know this, and that they don't. I had a woman from West Palm just sent me the whole thing of her dad got Baker acted. Here's the thing. If you get dementia, everybody thinks Baker acting is 72 hours. A standard Baker acting is 4.5 days, average in Florida. If you get dementia, you can add another week on top of that. These people get out of there on it. Well, this woman, her father got Baker acted, UTI out of a facility. His behavior went a little out of whack. He gets Baker acted. He's there for 12 days. All right. He finally gets back home, back to the facility. He goes, I hurt. The doctor finally made his rounds. They took him to get some x-rays on him. He had 3 broken ribs on his right side. He had broken his ribs fighting the restraints while being Baker acted. She sent me the prescriptions of what they ordered for this man the first 24 hours. He had 3 6-milligram shots of Holodoll in the first 24 hours. I'm like, oh my God. That's what's happening to these people. And they put him in solitary, basically, on the deal. Not that this guy could even move to begin with. Now, Holodoll, and that's just, but the problem is they're not recognizing the people in their 50s, which is very common for the Lewy bodies and the FTD, and vascular dementia also.
So, but you are doing training with
yeah.
Tell us about
it. And actually, I just got contacted yesterday by Pasco County to come and do some training for the first responders on that. The police, they're not even out there to recognize the people with dementia. They get somebody that's 85 that's showing signs of cognitive impairment. They understand that part. But the people that are younger, right now, the people that are in their 50s are on fire, getting the other dementias or early onset Alzheimer's even. On the deal. Those are the people that are misunderstood. So through the program, we're talking about a lot of stuff. I mean, all the way from how to get them into the police cars without hurting them. We're doing mobility movement on it. The fact that we're telling them when somebody wanders, right? When you wander and you get lost, the first thing you do and you're scared, right? Their anxiety is through the roof. They see that cop and they're going the other way. They're arresting these people for resisting arrest when they don't even really understand that uniform doesn't mean anything anymore to these officers. But they work very hard for this uniform. So we're training a lot of aspects on that. We're teaching about all the dementias and different types of dementias on that. We're teaching about when you get a 911 call and you walk in the house. One of the things we're teaching is like, listen, sometimes you got to take a look at not just the person you get called for, take a look at the caregiver. They might be in worse shape than the person with the dementia. There's a reason why it all came onto it. So we got a lot to say. We're talking about shoplifting. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. We're telling the police, I go, by the time this is done in the store with the manager, you probably want to just pull the money out of your pocket and pay for it yourself, because they're telling you, I didn't put that in my purse. No, the manager's like, she's lying. We have her on film. I go, well, the woman's not lying. That's what her brain is physically telling her, that she didn't put that in her purse. She doesn't know how it got there. So all the misunderstandings, we're trying to get them to understand and go on to it. So the training's been good. Go ahead.
How responsive are the officers to the training? Are they interested? Are they engaged?
When we're done doing the training, they all come up to me and say one thing. He goes, oh, my goodness, this is not what we thought you were going to teach us. All they thought they were going to hear was about Alzheimer's. And we got to put it all in one picture and address the behaviors. We're teaching about communications, the best way to communicate with these people. We're telling them once you put that hand on this person and you get your hand on this person's shoulder, all those words you say from there on isn't going to mean anything to that person. Because all they're going to want to know is, why is this person touching me? That's something they don't understand on it. And I'm telling you, when we did one of the hospital trainings up here, Hernando County brought in the correctional officers from the Hernando County Jail. Right? These people, basically, they tell me, goes, this jail is full of people with dementia. Full of it. They don't even know what to do with it on it. All for resisting arrest almost. So I thought it was pretty good. They actually brought the correctional officers in on the training on that. They even brought the RN from the jail to do some training on it. So there's all good stuff going on. We're getting there slowly. I mean, we really got to do the education on this, but it's slow going.
So Gary, since you do have such wonderful ideas on that sort of thing, you've identified a big problem. I know that that's happened locally here, where the prosecutor in a case, let's say it's a caregiver who tried to keep them safe because the wife was lunging for the wheel. And so the caregiver pushes the wife away from the wheel, otherwise she would have crashed the car. And someone sees this, he ends up being arrested, and it's explained to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor's take is sometimes, well, that's all well and good, but she's a vulnerable adult. She's over 60. Because she has Alzheimer's, then she needs to be more protected. So we're going to go ahead with the prosecution. Yeah. So it seems like there's a disconnect in the legal system about looking at this with common sense.
We need to actually go in and train the courts too. You're absolutely right. We got a man here in south of Tampa a little bit on it. He's got FTD. He has broken 7 restraining orders against his ex-wife. So now he's been arrested, and the judge is putting him in jail for 1.5 years. Well, this man doesn't even know he has a restraining order. Like I said, once again, there's probably more to this story. Obviously, he's not very well supervised. But putting this man in jail for 1.5 years, what's this going to do for this man? Doing it. So this woman, the daughter of the family here, has spent $17,000 to have a neurologist go to court to testify, to explain to the judge basically what FTD is. And it's just, like I said, this man doesn't belong in jail, but he definitely belongs with better supervision. He keeps breaking the restraining order. There's always another side of the story we're not always hearing. But like I said, the judge doesn't understand. There was a lady over in Sebring area who was feeding the ducks and got arrested for feeding the ducks. I don't know if you remember that story a year or so ago. The judge was going to put her in jail for 1 year. Keep violating the order. This woman didn't realize she was even doing anything wrong.